So, boys, we've been wanting to do this for a long time. First internal episode ever of the One More Jump podcast. And it is a celebration. The reason why we're doing it is because it's the 3-year mark of when this whole thing started with One More Jump. And it's kind of like simultaneously, like right around the same time that we really started pushing to make Rise into, something, different, something like what it is today. So anyway, the people that listen probably they definitely know who you guys are at this point, but let's go ahead and do a little bit of an introduction. So we've got John Wood. He's our director of content at Rise and then also coaches at Rise. So he's responsible for putting together all those clips, all of the awesome content that has been going up on our Instagram and YouTube page. And then we've got my brother Luke, who is, he basically kind of runs Rise at this point, and then is a pole vaulter as well, a post-collegiate pole vaulter, 2022 World Championships qualifier. And yeah, so thanks for coming out. You're probably going to want to bring that microphone up to your up to your face a little bit more.
Yeah, dude, I'm really excited. I didn't think I was ever going to get on the podcast, so
We're on,
here we
baby.
are.
We are.
Let's do this. 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. It has been, you never know where something like this is going to start, like where it's going to end up. Like you just kind of do something that at the moment you just like, man, that would be fun to do. And then slowly over time, it just started to grow into where people started to listen to it. And it was really, really cool. So what we thought we would do today is do like an internal episode where you guys can kind of talk to me. We can talk about like how it all started and what happened. And there was, John did a post the other day on Instagram asking for questions about the podcast and just like questions in general. Yeah. And first of all, I do want to say thank you to everybody who has listened to this, because it would have been really embarrassing if nobody would have listened to it. It would have been really bad. And I appreciate it because it really is something that I don't do this. Like, I don't get paid. Like, I'm not like making a lot of money, like doing the podcast or anything like that. And I think the biggest thing that continues to help push me is like the people who are fans of it. And like, I'll get like, just the other day, I got an email of like, hey, I was in a really hard spot in my life, and I listened to the podcast, and I don't know, something that was said on the podcast helped them through that difficult time in their life or whatever. So those sorts of things. So thank you so much to everybody who's listened to this over the last 3 years, and here's to 3 more at least. So what did you guys think like whenever I started this?
Well, I think that it started as like a COVID project mainly because we were sat down and we're out of our old facility for like 3 months because of COVID. And then I think you had the bug to try to do something to provide some sort of pole vault content still. I wasn't going to be involved with it at the time. Josh was involved with it, and you guys just kind of were like, all right, let's just do this as a hobby. And then it started to take off and people started to actually enjoy it. And then beyond COVID, it was like, well, now do we hold on to this? Because you've already released like 3 or 4 episodes, and it was pretty regular, and we started getting more people liking it. And then that's whenever it was just like, okay, let's take it serious. And you started actually getting even more consistent with the scheduling and even more consistent with the introductions and all of the other, simple stuff. Got yourself a boom stand, got yourself some good mics and stuff like that. And now it's built into something that's a lot different than it was back then, but still the same kind of concept of just trying to provide content for people, which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah. It's like it kind of just plays into the mission of what we started here is just at Rise. It's just like having something that you can be a part of. Like in pole vaulting, we don't have that like year-round involvement and like year-round. Around here we didn't have that place where we could be like, all right, yeah, this is my place, this is where I go, this is where I can train anytime I want. But then like what comes along with that is like you want to create fans of the pole vault, and you can't be a fan of something if there's nothing to be a fan of. Like if it's just like, I'd never, we did John put together like a funny YouTube video or Instagram video about like people, would name a professional pole vaulter or whatever, and like they could only name Mondo, and like and like that's like sad, man. But it's like it's not their fault, really. It's like how are they supposed to know? They like if you follow basketball, you can just flip on Sports Center, or I don't even know if people watch Sports Center anymore.
Sounds about right.
You can just flip on Sports Center or like pull up YouTube or whatever, and then something's going to come up about these basketball players. And if it does enough times, then people start talking about them and become a fan of them. But there's just nothing really out there unless you just follow their page.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
how do you know to follow their page?
Right. You don't even know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if you like just plugged in like into Instagram search like professional pole vaulter or like pro pole vaulter or something like that. Like if anything would even come up, really.
Mondo probably. That's about it.
Obviously Mondo's going to come up, but yeah. So I think that the podcast, it definitely started as something that was me and Josh, who's my middle brother. We were just kicking around the idea. We've always been involved in production. Like we've always liked audio production. Like we played in bands growing up. We played guitar. We played. We always loved, the best speakers and the best, mixers and the best guitar pedals and guitar amps and all of that stuff and best microphones. So it like played into that part of what we enjoyed when we were younger, and we were like, oh man, this is so cool, because it kind of also adds to the business that I had started at the time. And it was like, all right, this is cool. It's like two of my hobbies combined into one. And then we, started to do it and enjoyed it, is to a certain extent. But then it like slowly started to be like, oh man, yeah, this is actually real work. Like you actually have to put time into it. And it was just like, okay, well, who's going to edit this week? Are you going to edit, or am I going to edit? Or how long is it going to take? Cause I got, 2 little kids, and when am I going to edit it? And I'm trying to run this business, and it just got shut down by COVID. So I'm trying to, write to get grants to, keep this thing funded, and it's like, well, when are we going to do this? And then it just started to be like, all right, yeah, this is like real work. And then you're just left with that decision of, are you going to really do this? Is this something that you think is valuable to you? Do you think that it's valuable to the people that are listening to it? Do you think it adds value to your business? Do you think it could help those things? And, it was hard to see it then, but I thought that the answers were yes to all of those questions, because I thought it was, I could kind of just like see down the road, like, okay, if we start to build this thing that's not really there, then, it could be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, that's one thing that looking from afar, before I was involved with Rise or anything, seeing you guys starting it, I was like, this is really cool. What's gonna keep you going at it? Because it's hard, it's a new thing. And I was like, I hope they just keep doing this. And you did it. And that's something it's really hard. And I don't think people understand how much time and devotion that takes, and how much time you put into this. And it's hard when you get probably 10 people listening at first. Like,
yeah.
what does that feel like?
It was like, I think we had like 15 people, and like 10 are my family. And so it was like probably my mom like texting people like, hey, please listen to this. Please listen to this. You got to listen at least 30 minutes or it doesn't count as a listen. So just, listen to it, please. I don't know if that was the truth, but it was like, that's the hardest part. I think in the beginning of what we were doing is it's the hardest part with starting Rise, with starting the podcast. Was the hardest part was convincing other people that it was cool and that it would work. Like convincing them when you have 10 people listening, like, oh no, like check this out. Yeah, I host a podcast. Oh, you host a podcast? How many listeners you got? 10? Oh, that's not a podcast. And like convincing them, that was so hard in the beginning. And like with Rise as well, it's like you can't have a livelihood with just a pole vaulting gym. You can't do that. What are you talking about? Whenever I pitched to our first landlord, whenever I pitched the idea to him, because people might not know this, but like when you want to go rent a facility, like, or rent a property, it's not like you just like walk in and just like, hey, I'm going to rent this property. Here's the money. And then we can go. It's like, no, man, I had to go in there and I called and they were like, no, we're good. And I was like, you didn't even like hear my idea. Like, what the heck? So I called back and I was just like, hey, I know this sounds crazy. And he's like, dude, a pole vaulting gym. How many people do you even know that are pole vaulters that are going to be able to support this, rent or whatever? And I was like, me personally, I know a lot of pole vaulters. And he was like, well, what about like just the general public? And I was like, you would be surprised. Like, do you know a pole vaulter? And he was like, well, yeah, I know one. He's like, well, no, I know like a few. And I was just like, okay, multiply that by, however many people. I was like, there's probably more pole vaulters than what you think. And then he was like, all right, well then you need to come up with a business plan and it needs to be a 5-year business plan and you need to propose it to me. And then I'll make my decision if I'm going to take the risk on you to rent my facility to do this. And I was like, all right, whatever, so I just went and just started to do that, but, and proposed it to him. But that was the hardest thing, is just not to get laughed out of the room by everybody whenever I was telling them, hey, we're going to do this thing. It just was always met with, you can't do that. Like you can't do that. Okay. And then after I was like, hey, like we're really moving into a facility, they were like, oh, okay, so you can do that. And I was just like, I think I want to do this for my real job, like full time. And you can't do that. You can't, dude, you're going to quit your teaching job. Teaching job's most just steady job, man. I was tenured. I had been tenured for like 5-6 years. You're going to quit that job and you think that you can support yourself and your family on pole vaulting? I don't know how many people I had to explain that to. I was like, yeah, I do. I know it sounds crazy. And then it was like, okay, I'm quitting my job. And then actually prior to me quitting my job, we hired Luke on full time. And it was like,
that's when it became real, that it was like, okay,
hold on,
we could actually do it.
And then it was like, I'm going to hire Luke before I quit my job. And everyone's like, you're an idiot.
But it was kind of smart because it was
that?
like, I mean, I know you didn't think about it in this way, but it was like, well, if it doesn't work out, Luke, I mean, at least it's happening to Luke. Like,
well, that's part of it.
And just to see like what the actual finances were of like, okay, we knew we both at some point wanted to be full-time doing it. So after I came on, we were able to see realistically, like, is that possible? What does that look like? And having the added teacher salary for a couple extra years was like, we could invest so much more into Rise and actually get it to be something bigger that was like down the road going to provide an opportunity to have multiple full-time employees.
That was the biggest thing. The biggest thing was, okay, I could quit my job right now, but if I can get Luke hired and taking a lot off of my plate, then I can live off of my pole vaulting or live off of my, teacher's salary, but then just take every penny that I could possibly generate at Rise and just throw it all back into it. And so I could work 2 jobs, which was really, really, really hard. But it enabled us to be able to just throw it all back in, because I knew that, that last facility was not where I wanted to end up or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
dude, before we move on from it, I know
Yeah.
a lot of people wanted to know this. What was it that kept you going in the face of those no's, in the face of people laughing at you, thinking it's
Yeah.
completely ridiculous?
I think what kept me going was just I have always had a strong belief in the concept. I just like I've maybe have mentioned this on the podcast before, but like I grew up always being kicked out of the field house for baseball, or like kicked out of the field house for badminton, or like something like that, like where it's like, okay, yeah, pole vaulters, yeah, you guys can jump at 10 p.m. That for real was what would happen. They would be like, yeah, you're jumping at 10 p.m. And because these are, guys, come on, these are real sports. We need the field house for the real sports. We can't have you guys in here. We got to have you guys come after the real sports. And then once the real sports are done, you guys do whatever you want. You can stay till midnight. And I just like grew up thinking to myself, like, that's BS, man, because what I do is, in my opinion, much harder than what they do. And I really just had a really strong belief in pole vaulting, like as a sport and as an event. And whenever I started this idea, I was like, you know what? It's unique enough. It takes a lot of athleticism and I think that pole vaulting has a strong enough community feel to be able to push and make it into something that is comparable to like a soccer club or a baseball club or whatever. And I think like the community, there's 2 track events that are very different in track and field. Distance runners and pole vaulters. They have like super like cult like followings. Like they just really get invested in their event, It's always been like that. Like pole vaulters have always just been like, I am a pole vaulter. They identify as a pole vaulter. This is who I am, and this is my thing. It's like a unique thing that nobody else does. You guys all, like 50 million people play baseball. I pole vault. And it's always such a unique thing. And the community, I just felt, was strong enough that it could support something like this. And that was just kind of what was operating in the back of my head. And at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I knew myself through what I had went through in athletics. I knew that I was going to make it work. Like I was going to make it happen. And, the first time that I signed the lease, like it was for way more money than my family had, And so it was just like, there really is no choice. It's just like,
Yeah, you like backed yourself in a corner.
Right.
You just got to make it happen.
Exactly. And all those lessons, just were from, growing up as an athlete, as a vaulter, just, you learn those types of things and then you can apply those concepts later on in life. And I don't know. I just believed in it, in short.
Yeah. Where do you see the sport going in like 5, 10, 15 years?
That's a really good question. Where do you guys see the sport going in 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I think what you were talking about was athletes, like young athletes need to see these elite vaulters, these people they can look up to in the sport. And so we're trying to do a good job of exposing that. I think just people being on Instagram, more athletes producing YouTube videos and stuff, I think that'll help raise awareness. But what I think it's really going to take is these kids who are seeing these greater athletes and these people they look up to, when they graduate, they can still follow them. And now they're not just an athlete that looks up to someone, they're a fan of the sport.
Yeah. That's a good distinction. Like whenever you get older, and we see it like definitely, because people will text me like old vaulters from a long time ago that will be like, hey, I saw, Mondo broke the world record or whatever. But I think that's a really good point. We have to have people that when they get, it's like they follow pole vaulting like a lot whenever they're younger, and then they graduate and then they're just like, yeah, I'm not following that anymore.
Yeah, it's like it's over.
But to their, for them, like, okay, well, what am I supposed to follow? Like, it's much easier to follow football. Like it's like I'll just be a football fan instead.
Yeah,
it's much easier.
Maybe we need to live stream some events with some announcers and stuff.
We need live streams. We need more gyms. We need to continue the growth of clubs and gyms in the United States. And in order to be able to do that, we need to show people how to do that. Like, because it's very overwhelming. But if we can provide some sort of like infrastructure, like, hey, this is how you could do this. Like we just started the development or are finishing up with the development of our app that we're working on called PVR, which is a pole vault rental app where you can rent poles. Like having that instead of somebody being like super overwhelmed with, well, how do I start a rental business? Like, what do I need to do? Like, I need to get a bank account, and then I need to set up an auto pay system, and then I need to have some sort of check-in, check-out system. And what if I want to give this one a coupon? Or what if I, accidentally charge somebody? Well, all that's really, really overwhelming. But if you have like an app like that where it's like, okay, I'm going to pay a monthly fee for this app, but it's going to take care of like the majority of the headaches, for me. That sort of thing is like going to be really, really important too. And providing like, eventually we would like to go into with PVR, like management, like how do you manage your members and how can you make that more streamlined and easier? Because at the end of the day, like if you can do that much more efficiently, then you can take your time and you can spend it on, why do all of our kids have shin splints? How can we help them get less shin splints instead of like sitting around doing accounting and stuff like that? Like I would rather spend my time figuring out like, okay, we've got, X% of our athletes who have run through issues at Rise. Like, how could we fix that?
Well, if we're also like, there's a very small percentage of people who know how to coach the pole vault really well. And I would like to think of us as people who know how to coach the pole vault pretty well. And there's some other clubs that do a great job of that. But the issue is that a lot of the time, if you're owning a gym or trying to run a gym, a lot of the time we're not spending time continuing to perfect our coaching abilities. We're spending 90% of our time doing stuff like that, all the accounting stuff and answering emails and stuff like that. That stuff kind of goes with it. But, we spent a good majority of last year trying to figure out how to do pole rental, with the system we're using currently. We spent a whole bunch of time trying to figure that out, when in reality, it's like if you take that couple months of figuring that out and instead you try to figure out a better program to have your athletes trained on, then they start jumping higher, and then it kind of just figures itself out. But you have to have the apps like that, to make things better and be able to have a gym that is run well enough to where you can hire other people to do things like, having John Wood to help us with all of the content production and stuff like that we've always wanted to do, but we didn't have the time because we wanted to invest more into our athletes. So it's like finding a balance of being able to run a good club or a good gym, but also not spending time doing things that aren't the reason why you have the gym. Like we have
Right.
the gym because we know how to coach and we know how to get kids good at pole vaulting. If we never improved one kid in pole vaulting, we wouldn't have this. So it's like
Right.
valuing that part over, you know, making sure that we're trying to find ways to reduce all of the outside noise, basically, so we can focus on the gifts that we have right now.
100%. Dude, nailed it. I mean, the thing is like, what are the chances? Like I was a physical education major, you know, so I had to learn all of this stuff about business just like on my own. And it took me a really long time, probably 4 years. Literally, like I got a real world MBA. Like that is what basically happened is I like went to the school of YouTube and like the internet and just learned how to run a business. You know, I'm still learning. I still have a lot of things that could be done better, but not everybody wants to spend 4 years trying to figure that out. I actually enjoy it. Like I enjoy learning about different aspects of business and different like systems. And I think I've mentioned it before. I love systems and like watching them work. Not everybody's into that. And probably if you were to like guess, like, you know, 90% of the really, really good coaches out there, that might be the thing that's holding them back. Where it's like, man, this great coach, like, is unbelievable. Like, maybe they coach at a high school right now or something and had, like, whatever, 1,000,000 state champions. Maybe not 1,000,000, but has had a lot. I wonder why they don't open, you know, their own gym. They could easily do it. They've got a great following. He's got a good name in the community. And then you go up and you ask that dude, like, hey, why, you know, have you ever thought about this? And probably the first words out of his mouth are like, dude, all I want to do is coach pole vault. I don't want to run, you know, the books. I don't want to do that type of stuff. So like, if we can make the barrier to entry easier into this, you know, club management type deal, if we can make the barrier of entry easier, it's going to, you know, make it so that more people, you know, are able to do that. And it goes back to other sports have other, you know, like ways. There's just more cash in other sports, you know, so they have better products, you know. In the pole vault, like, we don't have very many like specialized tech products, you know, like,
No.
there's not too many to choose from, you know. So I think that if we can learn how to leverage technology better, and then, you know, just be able to reduce the amount of time spent on the managerial stuff and you know, help people get into these sorts of situations, I think that more good coaches do this sort of thing. And then if there's more places to do it, there's going to be a more likelihood of more people doing it. And then it just continues to just grow from there. And that's where I think it ends up in five years. And then you said 5 to 10 years, I think. But these kids right now who are like vaulting at Rise, they're kids right now. But one day they're going to be college athletes. And then one day they're going to be professional athletes. And so that's where I think that the more that these clubs pop up, I mean, it's pretty obvious that run of athletes that came through high school with like Chris Nilsson and
Mondo,
Casey,
Zach.
Mondo, Zach.
Sandre was actually in that group.
Sandre. Like, let's just think about this right now. How many of those people just came out of just a high school setting? 0?
I think so. Probably 0. I mean,
well, Casey and Chris both went and worked with, I'm going to butcher this, but I know Chris worked with Rick Addig. And then I think Casey worked with Todd Cooper in like Kansas City or something like that.
Seems right. Kind of.
I don't know. I could be.
I don't know either.
Mondo had his situation with his dad and his family, You know, who are the other ones? Sandre,
Zach was
Zach, Flying Dragons.
Flying Dragons, coached by his dad mainly, I think.
Right. And then
Sandre, coached by his dad, came out of a club situation in Norway.
Yeah, I think so, maybe. Anyway, I know.
And then
Well,
came over
Sandre,
to
yeah,
US.
Sandre was just on, and then he did have club sports. So like the thing is like it's already starting to happen. Like it's already starting to go up. So I think it's just helping. So anyway.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So this is a question from My Garsp. It is how much.
That's Paul's dad
Got it.
or mom, one of them.
I think it's Paul's dad.
Question from Paul's dad. How much time is invested in your research to prepare for a podcast interview?
That's a good question, Paul's dad. It depends because some of these people like I know pretty well. Like so for somebody that I know pretty well, then not a lot of research. But sometimes I mean I do research for sure and go in and check out their Instagram, check and the biggest one is double checking PRs. Because like there's a lot of times in the description or like in the introduction I'll like make a reference to like what their PRs were. Like let's say for example like Paul Burgess from Australia. I was a big Paul Burgess fan, but that was a long time ago. So like I didn't remember exactly what his PR was. So then I was like, all right, I got to find out what the PR is. And then sometimes like World Athletics will have a discrepancy with Wikipedia or whatever. And then I'll be like, oh, great. So then I got to shoot him a text and just say, hey, what's your real PR, or whatever. So that's one that is difficult. And then I do have like usually about a page and a half of kind of like prep questions just in case, because I never know. A lot of these people I've seen before or like maybe said hi to or whatever, but I've never had like a long conversation with them. And you never know if somebody's going to be a dud. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Or
like,
they just don't want to talk.
or they just don't, yeah. Or they're just like hitting me with like one word answers and stuff like that. So like, there's some times where I'll just have to be like, I got to have some like ammunition, like I got to have a list of different questions of, okay, well, if we, the easiest one is like, start off with your background or whatever. But then like what happens if we like run out and we're getting like these one word answers and then it's like, yeah, we've been on for like 25 minutes.
Thankfully, it's seemed like you haven't had that really at all, which has been nice. I don't know if it's because you've been good with the ammunition or what.
There's only one person who was a huge dud. No, I'm just joking. No, it's been really good. And the other thing too, like, I don't know if I should be revealing all of my secrets here, but I do research them before I reach out to them. Because if you think about it, you never know, like somebody who might pole vault really high might not be a good interview. It doesn't like automatically qualify you as a great, interesting podcast if you've pole vaulted high.
Right.
So what I do is I'll go on YouTube and I'll just be like, okay, so-and-so interview, like, Mondo Duplantis interview. And Mondo's a bad example, but like, I'll just go and like watch a couple interviews and be like, yeah, that seems like somebody that I would want to talk to. And I think that's another big point too, is like, I just have people on that I just genuinely want to talk to, because that, if you genuinely, I'm a pretty genuinely curious person. And I like to find out information about people. So if I select the guest properly, then I don't have to be worried about doing too much research anyway, because I'll just dig it out of them. Like I'll just keep on asking questions.
Yeah.
And and then it just rolls, you know? So that's a really important thing to anybody who would ever want to start something like this. Really important thing to make a discrepancy between just because somebody pole vaults high or was like a great pole vault coach or whatever doesn't mean that they're going to be a great podcast. And you have to do your research and make sure that it's entertaining, you know, that it's going to be entertaining.
And usually you've already got a long list of people that you have in the back of your mind or physically have a list of. So then it's hard when people reach out and, you know, have like a guest example or something, which probably is a great guest, but they don't realize that you've probably already got a list of 50 people that you want to interview, you know, prior to thinking about anybody else.
Or I've got like a list of 1 million like pending podcasts. You know, like, hey, would you be interested in doing the podcast? Yeah, let's do it. 5 days later, you know, like I'll send a response like, all right, yeah, like, what do you think about Wednesday at 9 a.m. or whatever? Like 6 days later, it's like no response. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll do another one and then reach out to them. And then same thing. Yeah, sounds good. I've listened to a couple episodes or whatever. And then all of a sudden you've got like, you do that a few times, you got 3 pending podcasts. And then somebody reaches out and is like, hey, you should have this person on. It's like, I got to kind of wait until I get like find out what's going on with these 3 first. And then you book one, and then you do that one, and then like the day before you do that one of those other 2 reaches out to you and is like, hey, yeah, let's do it tomorrow. It's like, dang it, well, I already got one tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just like the scheduling is really difficult, you know.
Do you feel like these kids that become college athletes and then the ones that go on and don't become professional athletes, do you see them jumping in the future?
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I think this needs to be like a recreation that is accessible to all ages. We have people ranging from, you know, I don't know, like 7th grade up to 75 years old
Yeah.
that jump at Rise.
Shout out to Paul.
Yeah. Not Paul's dad.
Paul. It's a different Paul.
Paul's dad's in the 90s.
Lots of Pauls in the Chicagoland area. Yeah, and that's the thing though, is that like it's just, we need to change. We need the ability for people to be able to do it like later on in life when they want to. And we started to slowly build like a master's night at Rise in the fall, and I think we're going to continue to push it after the high school season's over. But like from June, July, August, and then big time, I think in the fall, September, October, November, December, like you could have like a master's division in each of the meets in the fall. And then, you know, the pinnacle would be like Reno or something like that. And I think that that would be really cool because it's definitely a great way to stay in shape. Like if you get out of shape, you're going to suck at pole vaulting, like really bad, you know? So big incentive to stay in shape if you're going to continue to pole vault like later into your years.
Yeah. One thing I've seen at Rise that's been pretty cool, we had a coach in the fall that she hadn't jumped in forever. She wanted to jump with us. I just talked with someone on Sunday who's a coach that didn't ever pole vault himself. And then I think that's a huge thing. These high school coaches that, you know, maybe they're a long jumper, maybe they did a different sport and they started learning about pole vaulting, they're coaching it, but they haven't felt it.
Yeah.
And so clubs could be a great chance for those people, jump in the fall, get a feeling for what it's like, and then be able to translate that and give that to the athletes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's awesome. I think that the biggest barrier for that is like me as like a 35-year-old man, like I'm trying to think of like, I wouldn't really necessarily want to like stand in line with like the like, you know, freshman in high school and just be like waiting in line with my pole. You know, I think like there might need to be like a time where they can, I think it would be cool to have a separate time. Like if you want to have master's classes, then you can do that. But that like opens up a whole new can of worms.
And that coach actually loved staying in line with the high school kids.
Yeah,
it depends on the personality, really.
100%. It depends on the personality. And I think that it's definitely not something like, I think it's something that is up to the person. She was there more for, I want to learn about, she was there for more than the reasons of just like pole vaulting, just because she liked to pole vault. I think she did like to pole vault, but I think maybe her main reasons were, okay, I want to learn how to pole vault to help instruct other pole vaulters better. And then like she got the full package because she's learning how to pole vault. She's feeling what these movements feel like. And then she's also seeing us instruct the kids. So then she's learning about instructing young kids in the pole vault. So she like got the full gamut of what, you know, it takes to become a good pole vault coach.
That's why it's important as a coach to not get annoyed when somebody gets off the pit and is respectfully questioning what you told them. Like if you're like, hey, you need to move your step back and go up a pole and drop your grip even, or something like that. And they're like, can you just explain why? Some people I think take offense to that initially and are like, why are you questioning what I'm telling you to do? I'm the coach here. And it's like, well, how is somebody ever going to learn if they don't know why they're doing something? If they're just being told what to do, it's exactly why these kids go to their track meets and don't know what to do, because they don't ask questions about, hey, why is it that I'm doing this? You know, I want to learn why I'm doing this so I can do this, you know, in the future for myself or for my other teammates and stuff. And I think the kids and the older people who actually are coming here as a coach to try to learn, it's important to ask those questions and to actually try to learn and not just be told what to do, but try to actually get better at coaching yourself.
100%. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Everyone's worked with the coach that is just like, don't question me. Get back to the end of the runway. Don't talk to me. There's sometimes where that's necessary, you know, because some people abuse that. Some people abuse that where it's like, you know, I want like maybe like a shy person or just like, you know, somebody to speak up and like, hey, like, do you understand why we're telling you to do this? Like, ask me why. But then there's some people where, you know, you gotta be careful because then you end up in a conversation, a 45-minute conversation about something, and
Next thing you know, they've taken one jump in the workout.
Right. And then
like,
and then
dang,
it's like, okay, well, this is too much. And so now, yeah, you just have to go back to the end of the runway and jump. I can't explain it. I can't do like write a book every single time.
Yeah,
every time you jump.
I think a big thing for me at least, like I love to explain things. I want the kids to know why I'm saying the things I am. But then you get kids like that are super talkative and are questioning everything, and then it takes so much of your time there, and you're like, oh shoot, I just missed that person's jump.
Right.
So
right.
it's important to sometimes just give them some discipline. like you have to just take it in and experience it instead of just talking so much, just something direct.
It's definitely a balance there. Like I like it whenever kids ask me like, what is it that I'm doing? Like, why are you telling me to do this? Like I like that. But there's always, you know, there's a balance to that. And if they ask me, why did you do that? And I say, this is why I did that. And then they say, well, I think this, like, then it starts to become
it's
more of like
the boundary a
like
little
an
bit.
argument, like where it's like, I'm trying to convince them that they shouldn't, you know, that they should do this. And then they're trying to convince me that what I'm telling them is the wrong thing to do. And then that's where the dynamic gets a little bit off, you know? And so it's just a balance, just got to be a balance. You know, the thing is too, is originally, this brings me back to that first question. I think the first question was like, why did we start the podcast or whatever, as a resource. So you had just mentioned about how whenever athletes get off the pit, like in a general session, like if you're doing a private session, that's a totally different thing. Like if you come in and you're doing a private, you know, session or private lesson, you're getting the full rundown, you know, like of, hey, we're going to do this. This is why we're doing it. and it's just a different setting, but if you're in a general class, maybe there's not the time to explain everything in depth. And then that's whenever the light was like, ding, 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 ding. Okay, I can't explain this all to you right now, but there's a podcast that I did that's 3 hours long. And we talked about this exact topic for a long, long time. So if you want an in-depth, like it's there. If you want an in-depth explanation, it's right there. You can go and you can listen to that. And then we took it a step further and it's like, okay, well, not everybody wants to listen to a 3-hour podcast or, some people, I find that a lot of people who commute or like, or like do like busy type of like jobs, like, I don't know, like,
or they got headphones in all the time.
Yeah, headphones in, I don't know, like stocking shelves or like a high school kid stocking shelves or whatever, got a headphone in. Like those people listen to the podcast a lot. But then it was like, some people won't want to listen to that. But that's whenever it was like, hey, we need to start pushing harder into developing content online, video content, so then we can use it as a tool. So now all the coaches at Rise and hopefully all the coaches everywhere have that Instagram page to where it's like, hey, how do I do this drill? Okay, well, I can't give you like a 15-minute explanation right now, but I can give you a quick synopsis of like what you should be thinking about. But if you go on our Instagram or you go on our YouTube channel, you can find it all. You can find how to do all of these things, and a big shout out to Sean Francis. Like he was like one of the first ones who really did that and just provided a really valuable resource to the community that was not a book.
Yeah, him and Josh's page. And then
and my brother Josh, yeah.
Are basically just recreating the foundation of that winder up stuff.
Right. Yeah. And just, and that was, my brother did that a long time ago with the Winder Up YouTube channel. And he saw the same thing. It was like, well, I'm telling these kids at workouts the same things over and over and over and over and over again. Well, maybe we should have something that's a resource that they can go and look at. And these shorts, this short form content is just, that's what everybody's into right now. So making short form content it was just kind of like a no brainer. Like, let's just start going into that. Some of it's fun, some of it's silly, some of it's really educational, and some of it just looks cool, but it's just cool because we're, really trying to dive into that, and it's been a good time. So I don't even know how we got on that topic.
I don't know. It's interesting. Let's see what else we got here. Another question.
Pull it up.
All right. Let's go a pole vault specific question. This one's from Ryan McGuffin. He says, "How dost thou feeleth about the double leg swing?"
Oh, man. Luke?
Well, double leg swing. Honestly, I was actually just talking to some kids at Rise yesterday about style in pole vaulting, and I think that if anything is too forced in somebody, it's just not too great for them to work on. If somebody doesn't keep a perfectly straight trail leg and they're trying to keep a perfectly straight trail leg, it's probably going to throw something off if they've already been vaulting for a long time. Mm-hmm. Same thing with a drive knee. Like if you I naturally plant the pole and drop my drive knee a little bit, and I've done that since I was a freshman in high school. Actually, before that, since I was in like 8th grade. And my dad has never for once, or Jake ever said anything about my drop drive knee a little bit, or, now there's some stuff that I do. I'm just using myself as an example just because I can only use myself as an example. There's some stuff that I do that are bad habits that need to be fixed. Like I throw my head a little bit in my jump, and sometimes I don't hit my bottom arm as high as I can, but I think and then I also tuck, but a lot of people are like, yeah, well, like you tuck, like some kids at Rise will be like, yeah, well, you tuck and Mondo tucks and this. And I'm like, you don't understand that for the past year and a half, I've been trying not to tuck. So I really appreciate the roast, you know,
Yeah.
but like, there's just certain things that work for certain people. And I think that if you're dropping your drive knee and it works for you, like we have a kid at Rise, Josh, who drops his drive knee, and he worked for a little bit trying to not drop his drive knee, and his jump just kind of plummeted.
Yeah.
And now he's perfect double leg swing, jumping over 16 feet every day in practice. And I'm like, dude, you never needed to like work on driving your knee. You know, that did nothing for you. So there's just, I don't know, personally, I don't think that, I think dropping drive knee, I think tucking, I think, you know, things like that are just style. That's kind of something that isn't worked for. It's habits that are created over time. And if it gets really bad and it's something that inhibits your vault, you know, in a bad way, then obviously you need to work on that. But, you know, for example, Katie Najat or Katie Nagoti, depending on who you talk to.
Katie Moon.
Or Katie Moon.
I was gonna say.
Or
Get it
Katie
right.
Moon. Katie Moon is, you know, she drops her drive knee too, but that's not something that they're, you know, really trying to work on making her drive her knee
I actually
and
would
stuff
be
like
interested
that. So
to talk to Brad about that because
I know he's not I don't know if he's a huge fan of
He doesn't
that,
like
but
that.
anyways, I think that some of that stuff is just very much, did that come unplugged?
No, you're good.
Nope. Some of that stuff I think is just very, you know, style. It's not really something that people a lot of the time work for. I think you can try and drop your drive knee, and if it works for you, great. But personally, I don't think it's anything that I like.
Yeah,
that
I wouldn't. I wouldn't
are,
like. I personally,
I wouldn't go and try to drop your drive knee.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
If
If
it
you're
doesn't.
driving your drive knee, I would just continue to drive your drive knee. I think you also have to, whenever you're going to make a big change in your vault like that would be considered to me like kind of a big change. Just like the big changes are like a bigger bottom arm or like a straighter trail leg or, you know, driving your drive knee when you have vaulted your whole life, not driving your drive knee. You always have to look and see if the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, okay, I'm going to invest the next year of my life getting my drive knee to drive. Okay, what's your return going to be? Like, what's the return? Is it a foot? Because if it's a foot, do it. You know, like,
Yeah.
is it a foot and a half or whatever? But is it like,
Is it 6
an inch?
inches? Because you could just move up to a bigger pole and get a little
Right.
faster and just go up
Exactly.
to a bigger pole.
like
and make
imagine if Sam, I don't know this for sure, but I would bet that growing up, people probably told Sam Kendrick, dude, if you don't stop dropping your head, throwing your head out, you're never going to be good. Never going to be good if you keep on doing that. And imagine if he would listen to that.
Now they're talking. They're talking to him now, and they're like, "Man, the best part of your jump is throwing your head."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
I always told
that's
you.
the thing. Yeah, I always told you should be throwing
You should
your
be
head.
throwing your
man.
head. Yeah, I think that stuff's like style. There's just stuff that happens. I think whenever I was young too, I still throw my head as bad habit now. But I was talking to Wood about this yesterday. That similar to Sam, I learned how to. I don't know if this is how Sam learned how to get upside down, but I learned how to get upside down by throwing my head, and
Yeah.
that's just how it worked. And then gradually, it becomes a little bit of a habit that I got to work on. But it's just funny that, you know, some people, that's just how you learn how to pole vault. And I think Mondo said the reason he dropped his drive knee is because he did it in his backyard or something, or was doing it on a high bar, and for him, tried it and it started to work really well, so he kept doing it. You know,
I remember when, just really quick, just to kind of finish up this drop drive knee thing, is we were talking about Josh. He's a double leg swinger, jumps 16 multiple times, you know, in track meets, and really, really incredible athlete. And we had Dennis Mitchell from U of I come in and watch a session of our vaulters just to see if there were any recruits they would like. And he, like, he was like, what's going on with him? What's going on with Josh? And I was just like, well, I just want to ask you honestly about that. Like, I don't really have any issues with him dropping his drive knee. Like, he just loads the hell out of that pole. Like, and I like it kind of. And he was like, me too. I like it too. And I was like, okay. I had just seen him get inducted into the Hall of Fame at Reno like 2 or 3 weeks prior to that. And I was just like, okay. I mean, I'm talking to somebody who really understands about, pole vaulters, and he didn't seem very concerned about it. He kind of maybe even liked it a little bit. So it's like, it depends on who you talk to. If you're talking to somebody who's like by the book, like you have to vault like Sarah Gay Bubka, then they're not going to like it. But
Nope.
I'm not one of those people, man. I don't know if have you ever read a pole vault book? This is bad.
I read Beginner to Bubka.
Did you really?
Yeah. In
How
high
was it?
school. It was good. It was a lot for me at the time because I didn't know too much and I didn't have a coach for part of high school. So I was just like, I need to learn somehow.
Right.
I read through it. I didn't know what half of it meant.
Right. Isn't it like really like biomechanical? Like, I don't know. I could be wrong. Is it like,
I'm trying to
is it
think
really sciencey
back to
kind
it.
of?
I just know I didn't understand all of it
Right.
when I was in high school.
Right.
So probably. But I did.
Yeah.
There was a lot I learned from it. I just wish I could tell you exactly what it was.
Seems like it was a lot. that book changed Wood's life. That book changed my life. How was the book, Wood? I don't remember any of it, but I just
I remember there were a lot of diagrams.
I've flipped through it. I've flipped through pole vault books. I don't even know if we should be even talking about this. I feel like I'm exposing myself
Hey,
here.
that's all right.
But I would like to. I'd like to.
I think that our dad's method of coaching was a lot based on there's a few principles and however you get like a few things, positions and stuff that I want you to hit. Not really positions, movements that I want you to do.
Yeah.
Is more what his stuff was, is like there's some movements that I want you to do. I want you to stay tall in your approach. I want you to be tall at takeoff and, see your right hand at a certain part of your body at a certain time. And however you get to those positions, I don't really care that much, but I just want to see those.
Right.
And if you do that and you get on a good sized pole and you grip really high, he had a balance of, growing up in Illinois, but then also going to Texas and having a little bit of the like gripper and ripper side, of him.
Right.
So it was a good balance between knowing you got to get on big poles and grip high, but coming back to Illinois and raising a family in Illinois, knowing that you can't really do that in Illinois weather that much. So then it was a little bit of a balance of gripping high and going on big poles, but also, getting the right technical movements down, I think.
He learned a lot from Antonio Coella too.
Yeah.
Who was from Italy. And he learned a lot of drills and stuff from him. And I think Antonio influenced Dad's coaching a lot. But anyway.
Yeah, your dad said something interesting the other day. He said drills aren't about getting upside down. They're about teaching you where your eyes should be and where your hands should be. And then getting upside down is just a result of that.
I think that's true.
Yeah. I think what Luke, I don't know if you said this as a mistake, but I really like how you switched positions to movements.
Yeah, just because he's always expressed how it's never been about hitting a Bubka model. And I think not that there's anything wrong with the Bubka model, but like models in general, just the word model is based on like images and like positions. Like, so if you're looking at like a model car, it's like, this is the bumper, this is the tire. Like with the pole vault, it's like, this is the takeoff. If your takeoff doesn't look like this, it's not a takeoff.
Right.
This is the swing. If this is your swing doesn't look like this, it's not a swing, And so it was like, he talked to me a lot more about that whenever I was in college, about like, I don't care, like your jump is never going to look like this person's jump, or it's going to look like Luke Winder's jump, but we got to still be able to hit these big things that most of the other vaulters are doing, which is, all the things that he's always expressed to us. We can go into that, but that's a whole different situation.
Really, really good point, because how many times do you have kids do this? they give you an iPad and they're
Paused.
like, paused.
And then
it's
they
like,
compare it
dude,
to Mondo.
look
That's what somebody did that to me the
all
other
the
day.
time.
I
but
was
it's
like, come on.
paused. And I like what you said about its movements and not positions, because positions is more like a reference to like a static position, like, or an image. Okay. But if you look at like these models, like we're kind of talking about, like in the books or whatever, and you could really get sucked into comparing your image of a still shot of your position in your video with an image in a book and be like, well, in this image it's different than this image, but there's no context in images.
3 frames before that image and 3 frames after that image, there's a whole movement that's like occurring.
There's no context for that image, because you might have done things incredible before and incredible after that still shot, but there's no context in the still shot. So it's like whenever an athlete comes to me and is like, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think my trail leg's broken down? I'm like, well, in that image, yeah, it is. I mean, you know that. Why'd you even ask? Like, it's broken down. But I don't want to see a still shot of somebody. Like, if you go to any coach and they're showing you stills of like, see, this is bad, they need to watch the whole vault, man.
Like
From
fast
the
motion
beginning.
too, usually.
Yeah, fast too.
Yeah.
That's a really good reference too, is because slow motion doesn't always like show the timing of the vault. And that's really good. I feel like something just kind of clicked in my head.
That's some good stuff right there.
Yeah, that was great.
Good stuff.
On to the next question, Wood.
All right. You want to pick one, Luke?
Make it a good one.
Let's do one from. Let's do one of these ones.
One of the personal ones.
How do you get upside down? Please don't do that.
I like
one.
this from Oliver X Berger. Best pole vault memory.
Best pole vault memory.
It's a good one. Wood, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
I already know what it is. Actually, I don't know.
Do you?
It's after he read Al Launder's Beginning to Bupka.
Best pole vault memory, I would say, actually, my junior year in college, I had a hamstring injury that kind of lingered the entire season. I didn't jump. I jumped in like 1 or 2 meets indoor, injured my hamstring, didn't jump outdoor until it was the last chance qualifier, which in D3, it's like you have to go a certain height to make it to nationals. Mm-hmm. So we had the last chance qualifier, and I hadn't jumped. I had like 5, 6, 7 layers of stuff on my hamstring. I had like pre-wrap, I had the wrap, I had like a special zoot suit, I had like I just had everything. And I was like limping down the runway, and your dad was like, hey, you only get 1 shot at this, so we're just gonna pass to, like, it was like 497 or something that it was gonna take to qualify. He's like, you're just gonna start there. We're not even gonna do warm-up jumps, and you gotta go. And I remember looking back at the runway, I'm like, dude, I've never jumped this height on this pole. I'm like on a 4 left pole right now, and I just gotta make this happen. And I run down the runway, and I run through.
Hey, that is a really good memory right there, Wood. All right, on to the next.
But second jump, I run through again.
This is turning out to be really good.
Please tell me he runs through 3 times.
And third jump, I'm like, dude, I just got to do this. And I was like run through molasses. But I hit this thing, and it is the best technique I've ever had in my life, because I knew I had to if I wanted to make it on this pole.
Right.
And I bump the bar and everything, but I go over it, and I look up, it's shaking, and it lands. And I get up, and I celebrate, and I never celebrate, but I was like, yeah!
Yeah.
Because I knew it had to be perfect, and it was like, that was the first time I ever felt what a perfect jump was like.
That's really cool.
Dang.
I thought it was going to go sideways there after.
And I ran through it 3 times.
through 2 times. Yeah, that's really cool, man. I feel like
You were
I might have
probably
been
there.
Yeah.
Was it indoors at Resurrect?
No, it was outdoors. You were there. Actually, it was cool because everyone was there. It was like the entire track team was watching.
I just
Oh,
remember
you
your
told me that no one was
hamstring.
jumping though.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
I was the only one jumping from North Central.
Yeah.
And so everyone was there. The whole track team was there. It was like everyone was in the stands too. So just the celebration was insane. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I remember
That's
that. I just
huge.
remember your hamstring always being wrapped up like
Yeah.
really tight.
It was twice as thick. I had so much stuff on there as the other leg.
It had the bad hammies. Still has knee issues and hammy issues to this day.
Yeah, you got some beat down legs. It'll be all right.
My favorite memory, I say the exact same one every time. People are probably going to be like, oh, when you went to the World Championships, that was awesome and it was really cool. But my favorite memory is the start of it all whenever I qualified for state freshman year.
That was a cool
It
one.
was, I had to PR. I had to jump 13.9 and my PR was 13.7. My technique was absolutely horrendous. And freshman year, my dad put me up to a 15.170, gripping 14.7, I think, to clear 13.9. So the ratio is pretty bad there. But I, third attempt, slammed into the bar. It bounced off the pegs and landed back on. And that was like the first time in my life that I ran off the pit in excitement, and like you and Josh came and grabbed me. But I remember I was like walking back and like looked up at the bar and I started tearing up, and I was like, I feel like that was the moment that I realized that I was like pole vault for life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I remember that. That was a
That was
really cool
crazy.
moment. Yeah, because
Plainfield North,
we
the-
had both
surrounded by
qualified.
cement.
Me and Josh had both qualified as freshmen, so it was just kind of like, you know, you got.
and I had one attempt, or else I was going to be the worst one. And I actually told that to Dad one time, or I probably said that in my other podcast. Like, why do I got to be the worst one?
Why do I gotta be the worst brother?
And then he was
That's
like,
hilarious.
just wait.
Yeah, yeah. I think mine. I mean, there's so many really cool ones, so I'll just pick one. This one, maybe you guys don't really know about, but my sophomore year in high school, I grew up watching the group of vaulters that my dad coached at North Central, and so they were like kind of my, you know, heroes or whatever growing up, and I always really looked up to them. They were really big mentors to me, and they had, some of them had this necklace with a pole vaulter charm on it. It was like a pole vaulter charm. And I don't know, we should try to find those and sell those on the website.
Yeah, we should.
That would
I
be
forgot
pretty sick.
about that. I still have mine too. I just don't. I have it
know.
at home.
I wonder if I could find mine. So anyway, and I was like, man, I want a pole vaulter necklace. I want a pole vaulter necklace. I had like just started vaulting in 8th grade, and I maybe had made like 13 or whatever. But I remember way back, like right when I started pole vaulting, maybe I had jumped 10 feet or whatever, and I was like, I want to get a pole vaulter necklace. And Dad was like, you can get you can get a vaulter necklace when you jump 15.
Yeah, because I think that's what he did with all them too.
Yeah.
But he just never told us that. So he would always buy them all of those charms when they would jump, like the necklaces when they jumped 15.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, so then that was a big barrier for me. So then my sophomore year, I went and I was gripping like 15.3 on a 15.6, like 75 or something. And I slapped over 15 feet and somehow it stayed up. I think it was at Oswego High School. And then I like freaked out and just
Slung the helmet.
Yeah, threw my helmet, and I was just like super pumped up about it. And just because that was a big barrier. And then I just remember, you know, getting on the bus, and it was, you know, getting home from the bus, and it was like really, really late. And I drove home, and everybody's asleep. And then I go and I'm walking through the downstairs of the house, and then on the kitchen table was just a little box. And I was like, oh man. And then I opened it up, and it was that vaulter necklace. And
That's cool.
I was like, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I just remember that. And, you know, it was just like one of those things that I really wanted to make happen. And
It's a good memory.
Yeah, it was solid. It was a good one. All right, let's go ahead and get back to maybe another question or two. And I will just go on record as saying that this is our first time doing this. Just so people understand, it's not been the smoothest situation. So we've had to cut a few times. But we're gonna make it sound all nice and everything.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna get it going. But it's our first time doing it, We
All
wanna
right.
get better at it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take another question. This one's going to be from Dead Racer 07.
Let's go.
Can you overvault in one practice?
Yes.
No. It's like
Next
yeah.
question.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I've started to play golf more seriously, like keeping track of my handicap and I don't know. It's been hard for me to find something that I really am motivated to do outside of just like work, and that's basically it. So I've been playing golf more, so you're going to have to bear with in the future. There's probably going to be a lot of golf references, golf analogies. So just a heads up for that. The thing with golf is that you can just keep going. Like if you're having a bad day, like the other day I hit a terrible round of golf, and then I just went to the driving range, and then I just hit 1 bucket of balls. And then I hit 2 buckets of balls, and then I hit 3 buckets of balls, and then I went over to the putting green and then started putting and chipping, and then I was like, luckily in the pole vault, there's just like a physical limitation. Like eventually you just will eventually get so tired that you can't really do anything. But I think the point where you vault too much is where you start to become ineffective. Every workout is on a curve, is on a big curve. And so we start the workout, we're warming up and we're ascending the curve, and then we go through our swing throughs, and then we go through our short approach stuff or whatever your system is. And then you start the incline. You have your first jump, your second jump, your third jump, and you're climbing. Everything's going really, really well, really, really well. And then we get to the pinnacle of the workout. And then once the pinnacle of the workout is there, you have a very limited amount of time there. It's a very limited amount. It could be 1 jump, could be 3 jumps. If you're in incredible shape, it could be 5 jumps, or it could be, maybe more than that. But I think for everybody, it's going to be different. And I think the most important thing is to find to learn the ability to recognize where that pinnacle is at, where that peak of your workout is at, and note it, and then realize when you're starting to descend off of that peak.
Yeah. And how many jumps have you taken? Like how many people actually keep a tally of how many jumps they've taken in a workout?
100%.
There's a lot of people who probably just keep jumping and they're like, yeah, I've taken like 6 when they've really taken like 16,
Right.
And just, I find it really useful to have that. Like we have a whiteboard at Rise, and I write all of my workout up, and I put on, I take like 6 jumps from my full approach, or from the longest approach I run in practice right now is 7 lefts. My full approach is 9. From 7, I'll take like 6 jumps, and I'll put 6 boxes on the board, and I check them off after each jump. So then it's no going back, Right. And I think for kids especially, it's hard to have the discipline if you're trying to keep control of that without writing it down. So when you're younger in vaulting, you could take, 1,000,000 jumps and it's not that big of a deal because it's, you're straight pulling, you're not bending the pole. There's not that much real technical focus that's happening other than just getting reps and trying to learn it yourself. But as you get older and better in vaulting, basically with skill, the volume of the vaulting decreases and the intensity increases, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what people don't understand is you're not like huffing and puffing, exhausted like that. It's just neurologically, you're not firing the same anymore. And even if you're 1% off makes a huge difference in the vault. Your step may be 6 inches. It may be a foot off. You're not going to move through the same pole. Your timing will be just a little bit different. And then if you keep trying to push through that, you're going to reinforce bad habits that you have when you're just a little bit tired. And that's where people get into trouble.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I read a book. Oh man. Yeah. So I want to be clear that I do read a lot of books. I just
not pole
haven't
vault
read,
books.
I just don't read pole vault books. I read a lot of books on.
It's like
different
watching
things.
YouTube, but not watching pole vault YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, I live a pole vault book. Like that's what my life is, you know, like, so anyway, I wanted to be clear that I'd read a lot of books. But I'm blanking on the name of this book. I just read it. It was, Tim Riley, gave me the recommendation. Oh man, I gotta look it up really quick. It's like top performance, or I'm not gonna be able to find it. Anyway, so it's this book, and it talks about, the whole premise of the book is talking about how a skill is built, like neurologically, like how is a skill built, like what are the like neural pathways like that fire that enable you to do a skill. And basically what it boiled down to was that a skill is equal to a highly myelinated neural pathway. So like if you fire a neural pathway a bunch of times, then your nerves wrap more myelin around that pathway. And the more you fire that pathway, the more myelinated it gets. So then it becomes much more, it's going in that direction, it's going in that direction, it's going in that direction. And then slowly over time, you develop, that is what is developing, quote unquote, muscle memory. And then slowly over time, you don't have to think about it as much because it's been so heavily myelinated. That pathway has been myelinated so much that you don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Then what can happen if you start to myelinate another pathway? So you've worked so hard your whole career to myelinate and to like carve out this pathway of doing the pole vault correctly. And then you've worked so hard during that workout to do the continuation of working down that pathway. And then you get tired. And then you take one jump and you start to fire this pathway. And then you're like, oh man, that one sucked. I'm going to do another one. And then you fire down that bad pathway again. And then you're starting to myelinate and wrap that new pathway. And then your body and brain is confused because then the next time you come to work out, it's like, okay, well, this one's like highly myelinated, but this one has been used quite a bit too. So which one do we use? And then all of a sudden you've reinforced, you've confused your body and now it's not going to respond, well to it. And that's basically like it was a really cool book because it kind of explained exactly what you were talking about, reinforcing bad habits, but it showed how it's been proven that how it actually works in your body.
Yeah.
And it actually works that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's freaking crazy. Whenever I did that, it really it changed a lot of how I coach. Because now there's like proof, like, okay, if I just allow this kid to just continue to beat their head against the wall, trying to do this thing, and it's creating these bad habits, I'm really, really I'm wreaking havoc on the, creating the proper neural pathway,
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool whenever, it'd be nice if I could remember that book. But anyway, you guys go to a next question, talk about something. I'm going to find that book because I think that's important.
You got one that's sticking out?
Dealing with weather, whether it be windy or cold, and still performing at maximum. TylerRowan.pv. Well, I'll tell you this. You can't perform at your maximum if it's windy and cold. That's just the proof. is in the pudding. Nobody does, and it's unfortunate, but it's just, you got to be able to accept that when it's windy and freezing cold, unfortunately, you can't perform at your maximum that you would if it was a good wind and hot. That's a fact. But you can still try and perform well, kind of well for the conditions, as long as you're super zoned in on your technical cues and things like that, and make a, point to accept the weather and accept that your performance isn't going to be what it is whenever it's perfect weather, great temperatures and all that. So the question was, how do you perform at your maximum in bad weather? And I said, you can't.
Yeah. Really quick, the talent code.
Talent code.
That's the name
talent code.
Talent code. Yeah, I was just talking to one of you guys the other day about this, about how frustrating it is whenever we'll work with an athlete that is like, well, my coach is just telling me it's all in my head.
No.
Like,
Well, that's the thing that
on,
bugs me, is it's like, okay, well then look up all of Usain Bolt's 100-meter times and tell me the weather for every single one that was over 10 seconds and the weather for every single one that was under 10 seconds.
Right.
And, some of them might still be good, and it might have been when he was, getting over an injury and stuff. But, like, the proof is there. Like, there was a meet a couple years ago. Mondo jumped 550. His PR is 20 feet 5 inches.
Right. It's like
That's
2.5
feet below his PR. It was like in Scotland or something. It's raining and all of that. There's just so much that goes into that. And like I said, it's not that you can't perform at an okay level. It's just that you have to accept that if it's a crosswind of 20 miles an hour and it's also, in Illinois, what's realistic is 25 mile an hour crosswind with 40 degree weather. Like, that's not realistic that you're going to jump as high as when you have a 10 mile an hour tailwind and it's 85 degrees outside. That's just something that you got to wrap your head around and just accept for then, and then just make sure you get in some good meets that are over summer. If you live in an area that's unfortunately bad weather, hope for the good weather. But then if you're, really wanting to jump high, put the effort in to make sure that you're trying to schedule some meets over summer, and during those windy and cold days, use it as an opportunity to drop your grip and work on building confidence in that bad weather.
I actually got an interesting story with Jake about the bad weather.
Yeah.
I was on my recruiting visit to North Central, and it was pouring rain that day. And I show up, and I meet you. I introduce myself. We talk for a little bit, and you say what you have. You have some pole runs and stuff. And everyone else is practicing in the field house. But you grab your pole, and you're like, all right, I'm going outside. And I'm like, all right. And you said, everyone else in America right now is training indoors. But when we get out there, I'm going to be prepared for the rain. I'm going to be prepared for the cold. So that way, when we get in the meet, I'm going to be able to win, and no one else is going to be able to do this. I'm like,
and then jump 15-6 the first meet or something.
I was, you know what that sounds like? A 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Hey, tell him really quick. Tell him about the 20 rep situation too.
The 20
doing 21 reps instead of 20.
Oh yeah. We would train, and I think we had an ab thing that we would do, and we had 20 reps, and we'd go for it, and you're like, we ain't doing 20 reps. Everyone else in America is doing 20 reps. We're doing 21 reps. And the funny thing is, to this day, I'll do 22 reps.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, it's
mentality, man. There's all of the other elite pole vaulters out there are cracking up probably because they're like been doing the same stuff since.
Well, that's what we thought we had to do to be the best. Like that, it was just like when you're younger, you just think like it's all about working hard, dude. It is so easy to work hard. It is so freaking easy. I can completely annihilate myself if I want to. If I want to, I could probably run myself in to die. I probably could.
Jake ran 100. Jake ran 100 miles off of very, very little training when we were in the midst of building this facility and doing a whole bunch of stuff last year and stuff like that. It's insane.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. So I was running like 25 miles a week total. And then I went and did that 100-miler in one day. So that's not just to like say like, oh, I'm really cool for doing that. But the whole point is, dude, working hard is easy. It is easy to crush yourself. That's what frustrates me so much about all of this bogus stuff that's on the internet these days is like, yeah, you go out there and you crush yourself. And trust me, I love listening to David Goggins. Like, he's hilarious. Like, I love watching it. It's inspiring. It's really, really cool. Okay. I love Jocko. I love listening to all these different, motivational people. But dude, that's easy. All you got to do is do it. You want to know what's really freaking hard? Have a bad workout.
And end on a bad jump.
Go home and have to sit there for the weekend and not do anything. You want to do something that's really hard? Do that. Because what's the person going to do? What is easier to do? To be frustrated, have the bad workout, go home and just be like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'm going out there and I'm getting it. I'm getting after it, man. I'm frustrated. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to run some hundreds or, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to go crush myself in the weight room or whatever. Like, or is it harder to be like, that was a really rough workout. I'm going to let go of that for this weekend so that I can be ready to go on Monday. Option A, go out and crush yourself, much easier. Much, much, much easier.
Yeah, it's an emotional response.
100%. Controlling those emotions and being able to see out on a long-term perspective is freaking hard, man. It's so hard to do that.
Takes a really confident person to do that too. Because if you're inconfident, you always think you have to do more. And the confident people are the ones who are content with where they're at. And they're like, you know what? I don't need to go take another jump.
I think we can all think of a few athletes here at Rise that do that. And it's like, you think you're doing the right thing, but we as coaches are like, man, if you just would listen and focus on the reps you have to take, don't do any more, don't do any less, just do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And just control yourself. It's not, you don't have to overdo it, because when you overdo it, it goes back to the last thing we said, which is just creating poor neural pathways.
Right, exactly.
You're going to do that, you're going to get injured, and you're just not going to be in the right mental frame to actually perform well.
Right. So then you look at, okay, what is the outcome of those two things? Okay, so you have the bad workout, you end on a bad jump, you go home, and on Saturday, this is on a Friday, and on Saturday morning, you wake up in the morning, and the first thing that pops into your head is, man, that was a really terrible workout. Do I know how to pole vault anymore? Like, what is going on? Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, am I in a rut? Like, what's going on? Okay. Easy thing to do is, I'm just going to go out and work out. I'm just going to go hard, and go out and crush myself or do whatever.
Watch my videos. That
falls into that category too. Watch my videos. I'm going to just do this and just do this kind of, because what it's doing is it's like satisfying some sort of urge inside of you, and you're indulging in it, and that urge is popping up, and then you're indulging in it. I'm going to open up my phone and pull up my videos, because by me looking at my videos, I'm going to solve the problem. You're not going to solve the problem. Like, nothing. Just by you looking at the video, like, and being like, I'm doing this wrong, dude, you're not going to solve the problem.
Now, let's continue the rabbit hole. And now we're going to go to social media. Ooh. And now I'm going to make sure that what everybody else is doing lines up with what I'm thinking.
Right.
And then it's just a freaking rabbit hole that just sends you into a downward spiral. It's really, really bad. That's why Jake doesn't like me going on social media and watching my videos that much.
It's all boils down to addiction and dopamine, and just like, because every time that you know, pull up that video, you do get like a dopamine hit, like where you're just like, okay, all right, yeah, so I'm watching it now and now I can fix it. Okay, all right, I'm good. You got to learn how to sit with that. You got to learn how to wake up in the morning and sit with that feeling. And be able to move through it. And if you're able to sit with it and move through it, then you can control it. And then if you can control it, then you can become better. Because the thing is if you go and you indulge in the workout, the extra workout that you think is going to get you better, like Wood said, you're going to end up sore. You're going to end up beat down when you're supposed to be resting. You're going to end up, you know, firing the wrong neural pathways. And then you're going to show up to the workout on Monday in worse shape. Now, if you're able to wake up on Saturday morning and sit with that feeling and just recognize it and then just let it pass through and go on a walk with your boyfriend or girlfriend, then you're going to show up on Monday ready to rock. You know, and then it's going to be like, oh, I'm so happy that I was patient and I made it to Monday. And now I can work out and I can go hard, you know? It's so hard. Yeah. It's all a mental, it's just
patience.
A mess. It's so hard to do. But anyway.
Luke was telling me the other day about something he did after Reno once. After a bad performance.
What, do you like rip his shirt?
Can't remember what I do.
No, just like
in the face?
How many times, like when you were younger, did you go to a meet, have a bad performance, and then you just immediately went and worked out right after?
I
remember, dude.
So many times.
Oh, that was in high school. I didn't jump
this was
that
a long
bad,
time
though,
ago.
But I remember this is really, really funny and embarrassing. But I went. And I jumped like 5'10" or something, you know, like 16.8 or something like that at Reno senior year. Yeah.
So it's a good jump.
Yeah. I guess
senior year.
Good, yeah.
And it was my first meet of the year or something. I was actually really happy with it. But I remember like, I'm going to go to the hot tub tonight. And I walk down there, and it's just like, I mean, the Reno pool is just like a cesspool of youth. Like, it's just disgusting at all times. You know, I'm happy the Rise kids were able to enjoy that this year. But but I remember looking, and I saw like some of the other, you know, like Devin King and all these people in the hot tub. And I loved jumping against Devin King and stuff like that. But I remember it was like Devin King with a bunch of ladies around him and stuff like that. And I went into the gym that's right next to the pool. And I grabbed the 40-pound dumbbells and just started curling them. But it's funny because I started curling, and I was just like looking back at it, like, in what way would that have helped me in my vaulting?
Yeah,
it was
not
just,
at all.
But that's that.
Dude, isn't there a window there
mindset
where you can like stare at him?
And I was staring out the window, and I was
just staring him down,
curling the 40s.
Take that.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I never did beat Devin King.
Really?
No. Yeah, he was a good jumper.
He's a really good jumper. Yeah, really good jumper. Yeah, it's there's been multiple times that I've just had a bad workout, and then, get off the bus and, gotta go start working out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Gosh dang, it's so stupid.
I remember doing it with Josh.
I mean, that's the thing, is that sometimes it's like the mindset that I think that if you're a really good competitor, you want to be really good, though, it's good to have that, but it's good to recognize it and not do it.
Right. Yeah. It's the yin and the yang. Like, it's the thing.
That's the thing that makes us who we are,
Right.
but it's also the thing that can tear us down, you know, and put us into we're never doing enough. We're not fast enough, so we need to add another workout in. We're not strong enough, so we need to add another workout in. It's like, dude, you just freaking like had one meet that you didn't jump that well. Like, you don't gotta like revamp your whole life.
Yeah.
Like I felt, yeah.
But like
That's
I've
how
felt
it
like
was.
that a bunch of times before. I've like revamped my whole life based on jumping, one meet that wasn't great
Every
on
time,
a different length.
Every
like,
time I have a bad day, I gotta have a sit down talk.
Yeah.
and just say my life's falling apart.
It's because I took the curls out, man. It's because I took the curls out. I got to add the curls back in.
I didn't PR today, and then my life is falling apart. And then, yeah, oh man. Yeah, I think a lot of it too is you're young and just filled with testosterone, and you just don't even know what to do with yourself. It's just like,
This
I'm
is
so mad.
this. I think this will be the last question we do.
Yeah, let's do it,
But
'cause
this
we
is a
got
really,
kids
really
coming
good
in
one.
here.
I think this is by TJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, TJ from Rise. Have you ever had thoughts about quitting vaulting? So let's think for you guys prior to you guys actually being done. And for me, since I'm still in the midst of my career, we can do me last since I'm still vaulting.
Yes. I had a very bad experience my freshman year in college at University of Alabama. And I just got myself into a hole, and I just didn't know if I was gonna be able to get out. So I was just like, yeah, I think I contemplated it then. And then later on in my career, it started to just get a little bit dicey, towards the end of my career, because I was working full time as a teacher. And like training, is really, really hard. I got married, had a house, and I was just like, I don't know if this is all lining up. But then once I had kids, that was whenever it was like, all right, the thought started to become more serious. I think everybody has the thought of, this is too overwhelming. The stress is too much.
It's taking up a whole bunch
It's taking
of time.
up a bunch of time. And I don't know if mentally this is good for me. I think everybody kind of hits that point every once in a while. And I'm happy I pushed through those, because those taught me a lot of lessons. But yeah, it definitely, if you haven't gotten to that point, you haven't pole vaulted long enough. That's coming. Get ready. Buckle up, everybody, because it's coming down the line, baby. It's coming.
Yeah, that's one thing is
And you got to ride it out, though, man.
you got to be like, if you're in this to get really good at pole vaulting, it isn't going to be a smooth road.
No.
But I'll let you go first.
Yeah.
I would say in high school and college, I don't think I really had that thought. It was just, I just knew I wanted to right away from the first day I pole vaulted, and even when it would be bad, I'd be like, I'd go. It wasn't until maybe after college, and it was a combination of injuries and just trying to figure out how to vault after college, which is really difficult.
For the people
know?
who don't know, what was your personal best in college?
It was 535.
535.
17.7, roughly.
And
Six
did you
and a half.
want?
So-
Did you? I never talked to you about this. Did you want to pursue like post collegiate pole vaulting?
Yeah,
I never
Yeah.
really talked to you about it.
I really did.
Yeah.
And it was something I always wanted to do. And even like when I was a freshman in high school and I jumped like 8.6, I just was like,
going pro.
I'm
baby.
going pro, baby.
Beginner to Boopka, baby.
It was that beginner to Boopka. It got me, man. And I just always wanted to. But then when you get to that place where you're like, I have no money, my life is going nowhere. I didn't even vault last season because I was injured. What am I doing right now? It's really hard. And I kind of just grinded in that space for a little bit, and I mean, eventually stopped.
What was
and-
the final? Do you remember what like the kind of final straw was?
Probably
it was
your
just
knee.
my knee. Yeah.
Your knee was too messed up.
Yeah. And it was one of these things where I probably pushed through an injury that I shouldn't have.
Yeah, for
and
the
try to
Rise
jump
kids
on it.
listening, Rise kids and parents, anytime you see Coach Wood sitting down, it's usually because his knee can't handle him standing up too long. Pretty crazy.
One of these days, man.
We'll
He'll
get
be
it.
100%.
Yeah.
For me, not really ever like, I'm going to quit. Like, I can't do this anymore. But whenever COVID did hit and I was in the midst of like a season, I had just gone to Indoor USA Championships and no-heighted, which was, not great. But then like right after 2020 Indoor USA's, COVID, shut the whole world down. And then it was like for the for the foreseeable future, no track meets, none of that stuff. I forget, I was 24 or 25. So it was like, well, gosh dang, like this is, in my eyes at the time, it was like, this is the pinnacle of my career. I don't have much time left, is like what my thoughts were. I'm thankful that I snapped out of that, because there is for all of you who are watching, who are, 27 plus years old, there's a lot of time for vaulting, I think, to be able to develop if you haven't already. So keep your hopes high. But whenever I was, during that COVID time, I remember there was a workout that I was at. Thankfully, we had Rise, because actually when COVID happened, I was doing multiple things. I was coaching personally. I was coaching at Rise. I was a GA. I was getting my master's degree. I was doing a whole bunch, and I was also getting my master's degree and stuff like that. And I was trying to pole vault. And so there was a lot of avenues that I was like, okay, well, same thing. I'm like trying to make ends meet. I'm also trying to, help run Rise the best I can. Rise just shut down. Is Rise going to go under? I have no idea. All that stuff's going through my head. But then also I'm like, my pride and joy in life, a lot of it is, my pole vaulting. I love pole vaulting a lot. But whenever that was taken away competitively, that's what I enjoy in pole vaulting. So whenever it was like, okay, the part of pole vaulting that's my favorite part of pole vaulting is taken away, and now all I can do is go to Rise and pole vault basically completely alone, because at the time when my dad was coaching me, he was having to do, he was a teacher, so he was doing the Zoom, classroom stuff, and he had to be at home all day doing that. And so I was pole vaulting alone. I was in there alone, most of the time not playing music, because I was trying to catch my own step with my phone. And I was literally in there at one point. I remember I hit a 490 and got front bund. And then this is from my 7 left. So for example, like I was on a 510 pole yesterday from 7 lefts, for all you guys who are wondering how crazy this is. I hit a 490 and got front bund, hit a 15.7 and landed like in the box. And then I dropped down to a 15-foot 190, my smallest pole that I own, and I came down on the bungee.
Jeez, dude.
Goodness.
And it was just because I just like was coming down, like my body was drained, my like mentally was just completely out of it. And I remember hitting the pit and I laid there, and I was just like, what? I just was like, what would happen really if I just stopped? Like, would it be that big of a deal? Because if I'm not going to have a meet for the next 2 years, which is what I thought, I was like, it's not going to make a difference anyways. Yeah. And then I think you told me, you were like, just take a month off and see what happens. And I took a month off, and you were just like, take a month off. I think you just need time to get away from the sport. And around that same time was when the podcast actually started. And that's actually, if you go back and listen to the first podcast that we did with me, Jake, and Josh, that was in the midst of that whole time of me taking a month off. I was doing like a bunch of random stuff, but just trying to just move on in life, and try to look past the whole COVID thing. So that was a tough time, but thankfully I made it through. And I made a world championship team a year later, or a year and a half later.
It makes you wonder how many people are like that are just like on the border, because that's a huge difference of you getting front bund on a 15 190 or whatever to jumping 575 at the world championships. Like,
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I remember thinking about like just being like, man, that just seems like really boring with you over there by yourself. And like, that was just a hard time all around. What was really hard was just seeing that place just sit there.
I know. That was the hard part too, is I would go in there and I'd be like, dang, man, like I hope that we still have this place. Because the other thought in my mind was, I was a GA at North Central, but I couldn't vault there because it was a school that was shut down, basically. And then I was like, if we lose Rise, I literally can't pole vault.
Right.
So I was like,
Yeah.
everything's spinning in my head like, gosh dang, I can't pole vault if we don't have this. But thankfully we made it through. And we're in a
shout out
much,
to
much better
everybody
spot
who,
now.
supported us during that time too.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever, I mean, I probably did. Obviously I did, but publicly that was a crazy time. Whenever you start thinking about it, it's like, man,
That's a little bit of
thank you everybody.
a downer note to end on. Maybe we should try to quickly
let's-
answer. Let's try to
it up.
quickly answer something a little bit nicer.
Get the energy up here a little bit.
Should go back to the.
Do you find coaching or competing more fulfilling? We'll end on that. Who's that by?
That was by
Chick on a Stick.
Hey, that's
Hey.
Amber. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
I would, for me, oh man, more fulfilling. I think when you're younger and you're in your pole vaulting career, you're really going after something on a personal level, and this is personal. I want to see if I can do this thing. And then there's like a switch that goes off after you're done vaulting, where you kind of realize like that what all that stuff that you went through that you thought you were just doing just for yourself doubles for a lot of other people, and you can use it as a tool for a lot of other people. So I think that if I were to have just pole vaulted for myself, I think it would be fun and it would be a really good time. And let's say that I won an Olympic gold medal and I just rode off into the sunset and just, did that thing. I think that would be really great experience, really, really cool. But the number of people that we've had the opportunity to impact over the last 3-4 years has been absolutely insane. Like seeing people like literally like, hey, I'm a senior and I want to learn how to pole vault. Or I'm like it's senior summer. Or junior summer. I want to learn how to pole vault. Okay, you learn how to pole vault. Okay. Then all of a sudden, they're getting recruited by big Division I colleges to go and pole vault. And it's like, hold up. There was a
whole
thing.
life changed.
Their whole life changed. There was a thing that they didn't even know that they liked. And then in the matter of like 9 months, they went from not even having this thing, pole vaulting, in their life to it becoming a whole different world that they never knew existed. And like just really like being able to see that alteration of somebody's life is really cool. So I would say it's definitely, for me, obviously I'm a coach now. more was the term rewarded or fulfilling? Fulfilling. Yeah, see, that's different things because like it's like here's another golf analogy. Hitting a really good golf shot is very fulfilling. Like timing up a pole, very fulfilling. Very fulfilling. Feels so good. Accomplishing a goal, very fulfilling. Helping other people, extremely fulfilling. It's just a different type.
Yeah.
Different type. I think they're both just different.
Yeah. Fulfilling makes me think of what I feel when I'm coaching someone else.
Yeah.
More than like when you're jumping yourself, there are a ton of highs and lows.
Yeah.
And it's really cool in that moment. And you get a few of those in your career.
Yeah.
But when you're coaching, you can feel that every day.
I was about to say, like when you're vaulting, it's like it just fills up and fills down.
Last night we had this kid that jumped 11 feet, and I remember the other pit, like the higher level jumpers over there saw him clearing 11. I put a bar up, and they just start yelling, cheering. I'm like, yeah, and we're celebrating over this kid. It's like, that's a cool feeling, man.
Yeah.
You get to feel that a lot.
Yeah.
personal career, fulfilling, frustrating. How about that?
Yeah, I'm an emotional vaulter and coach. I'm just an emotional person in different ways, but like whenever I'm vaulting, that can be seen with my celebrations and stuff. I'm super passionate whenever I make a bar and yell stuff and all of that. But that's where my fulfillment comes from in my vaulting, is whenever I do something that I have belief that I can do it, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen. And I think you said something last year where it's like something about like if you know that you're not 100% sure you could do something, it's like better or something. I forget what the quote was, but it was like something before you were doing your 100-miler. You were like, the
only like time that you really, are that was from another book that I read. Can't remember the name of it. Stacey Truglia read the same book too. But it was, if you're pushing yourself, like if you have a 50% chance of success,
something like that.
That's real. But if it's like, I've got like a 99% chance of doing this, it's not real.
Like
50-50 shot, like starting this place, 50-50, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know. You roll the dice,
And with like vaulting, I think that, I don't know if that's, if 50-50 is the percentage or whatever, but the thing that fulfills me is whenever I'm doing something that's very much like, this doesn't feel 100% normal, and I'm not 100% sure I can really do this, but I'm just going to go out there and try it and see what happens.
Right.
And then you end up finding yourself in some crazy positions. And so for me, that's what I find very fulfilling. Like, everything that happened last year, if you compare that to what happened the year before, like, it was just very, very like crazy for me to be like, how did this just happen? But it was just by us following, just following kind of a process of what you kind of had for me. But then on the other side of that, so like vaulting's been very, very fulfilling for me, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of that kind of stuff. But then vaulting or coaching, I think I'm more emotional in the way of like how I was whenever I would watch you and Josh vault. And it was just very like, I know how, like it was before I knew how that felt, but I felt like I knew how that felt. And then whenever like a kid nowadays does something, I can very, very well relate with what they just did and the feeling that they just got, and the first time that they ever cleared, a girl, or first time they cleared 12 feet, or a guy, first time they clear 15 feet or 16 feet or whatever. And being in the position that they're in and knowing that we have all been there before, that to me is super fulfilling, because it's like a full circle moment. Because like for me, because I'm 27, so like it's my first time that I'm like considerably older than like the people that I'm coaching. I started coaching whenever I was a junior in high school. So like now that I'm like considerably older than those kids, it's like, dang, man, like I remember that exact moment whenever I did that, and I know exactly how that feels. And for me, that clicks into like a weird like dad mode of like wanting to cry sometimes. I know that sounds weird, but so like I get so pumped up that I'm like, dude, that was like the cool, like that is so cool, because I remember exactly how that felt. And for me, it like can just sift through all the different memories of the first time I ever cleared 14 feet and like what I did and like how I ran off the pit, or I did this. And it's a really cool, thing that we have. And the like people at AZPVA and other people who are vaulting right now, but also coaching, I think kind of can relate with what I'm saying about like, it's cool also to be somebody, I don't want to say somebody that these kids look up to, but like I kind of hold myself as an example of rise, and I hope that whenever I go to these meets, I can represent the company well. And then whenever I go out there and I do jump well, it is very fulfilling. So it's fulfilling in both ways, of coming in and maybe the kids trusting me a little bit more because I've jumped high, but then also knowing that I'm an athlete here too, and you know I'm doing the same thing that they're doing, and we're just kind of working towards the same goal of trying to get this thing to be lifted up and just keep vault high or die. I don't know. No, I do always say vault or die though. It's like skate or die. It's like the skate or die thing in me, man.
I love it. Well, boys, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah. It's been fun.
It's been really a lot of fun, and I think we are going to probably do these, maybe a little more often. It was a good time, and once again, thank you to everybody who's supported the podcast over the last 3 years. It's been a good run so far, and we just want to continue to push it and make it better and better. You guys have anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been real.
Yep. All right. Catch you guys later.